Yeah. Yeah.
My precision. You see my history through my gaze, but now it's time to feast your eyes.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Talk with Blaze, episode 38.
Oh my god!
Look, do you guys smell that?
Donney, I've been telling you. Oh my god!
We're gonna
Donney,
start. We're gonna start.
every week.
Wait.
Every week, man.
Wait. We're gonna start the interview like this.
every week, Donney.
God.
You gonna do this while Dijak is here?
Whoa. We're gonna start the interview like this.
Oh my god!
What? What?
Oh my god.
Donney, this is embarrassing, man.
All right. What's up? Respect. Thank you. Respect the hoodie.
Oh my god!
Oh my! Listen, chat. Welcome to Talk with Blaze, episode 38. The Dijak interview. Dijak, welcome to Talk with Blaze, man.
What's
Sorry for
up,
the smell,
guys?
Dijak.
How are you? What's up?
Pretty good, man. You know,
Pretty good.
hair, lovely hoodie, dressed to the occasion, tie
No.
on.
I
Sorry
wore
for
my
the smell.
pajamas, my Christmas themed pajamas.
Comfy.
Yep, very comfy. I'm very festive today.
There we go. We got an interview going on. This is our first real big interview on the show. So let's see how this goes, man. Bot, you want to start off with a question you have for Dijak?
Yeah. So I couldn't get a clear answer when I was looking for the first part of this question, but during the pandemic, obviously 2020, did you ever wrestle in front of in the performance that there was no fans? I know you for sure did for the Thunderdome, but how can you kind of compare those that experience?
So I never wrestled in the Performance Center with no fans, but I did wrestle at Full Sail with no fans. There was a crossover transitionary period there where it's actually kind of sad now that I think about it in hindsight that the final shows that WWE ever did at Full Sail were like these lousy, no well, there was stages, right? So the way that it worked is we started in full. This is just NXT, right? The main roster went straight to they took over the Performance Center, and that's the area where modern day NXT is taped, right, or filmed. So same exact area, and actually the timing of it was that our last NXT show before the pandemic hit, literally the day of or the night before, was at the Performance Center. I don't know if they were predicting this or if they wanted a fail safe or whatever it was, but we decided, or they decided, to do NXT from the Performance Center. So it was live, it was on the USA Network, and then COVID hit the next day. So the whole area was set up and ready to go. And so they just moved Raw and SmackDown right onto that ring with that soundstage area. But in terms of NXT, we went back to Full Sail and there was just no crowd, no audience. And the main roster obviously had no audience, just two separate venues. So yeah, those were probably the worst pro wrestling matches I ever had to participate in, was in front of no crowd. And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, they added we got the go ahead in Florida to use I don't know, 15 people in a room or something at a time. So they started adding like other wrestlers behind these big glass hockey things. So there was a couple months of that, and then they kind of transitioned that into the main, and then all of this came to a head with the Thunderdome basically, and then the Thunderdome kind of took over for, I don't know, I think the Thunderdome probably started in like September or something, because Retribution was ironically literally the first thing that happened in the Thunderdome. So well, the first segment, but the second part of it, because the first thing was Vince standing in the ring on SmackDown saying, "Welcome to the Thunderdome." Then the Bray came out and interrupted him, so there was the Fiend entrance, and then maybe Braun Strowman was in there for some reason, and then Retribution came out from under the ring, and then the Fiend disappeared, and Braun was left and beat the shit out of Braun. So that was the first segment that ever happened in the Thunderdome. Everyone was under a mask at that point, but that was my first thing that I ever did with Retribution. So that was kind of interesting timeline wise. But yeah, does that even answer your question? I
guess the question about the Thunderdome was like, did it ever feel anything close to wrestling in front of a crowd?
It felt better than it did.
Oh wow!
It felt way better than it did in front of no fans or in front of the other wrestlers. Right? It was just way better than that. Was it as good as wrestling in front of fans? No. It made us really understand that we took fans for granted for a very long time. That being said, it was so unique and so interesting. It's the kind of thing that while it was happening, I never took the uniqueness of it for granted, right? Because it was just such we would show up for work every day and be like, this is so surreal. Like all of it was so surreal in terms of what we were doing and how we were doing it. Almost felt like we were in a movie the whole time, right? Because like the whole world was on lockdown, but we're in front of these like weird like video screens from the future. It was very odd. And then the wrestling itself was very odd too, because you'd be wrestling in front of these people and they can't see you, and then we'd go to break and they couldn't see us anymore, so we'd just be standing in the ring doing nothing. It was all very, very interesting. And then once our segments were done, we're still in this big arena or sometimes a big baseball field, and there's seats everywhere and there's nobody in them. So we as talent could just go and like sit in the arena and just watch the show just like for us in a big arena, which is a super unique sort of experience in its own right. So yeah, it was definitely fun. I was there with like a lot of my best friends, so I really appreciated that in the moment, especially considering that most of them got released, and then for a long time I was in WWE kind of without my friends. So I looked back fondly at that portion of it, but yeah, it was kind of a double-edged sword. Everything in WWE is a double-edged sword. Nobody's like 100% happy and nobody's like 100% sad. Everybody's just kind of
there. I get you. I have a question, but before I do that, I have another person that's supposed to be a part of this, so I'm gonna bring her up. Sure. And I'm gonna ask my question. Elisha, what's up? How you doing?
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Nice to see you, Elisha. My question for you is, how was the name T-Bar presented to you, and like, what was your initial reaction when you heard that name, like T-Bar?
So the name T-Bar was presented to me by Bruce in Gorilla. It was just all of us. I say in Gorilla, but this was like a couple hours before the show. It wasn't like as we were walking out, like, your name's T-Bar, by the way, here's your music. No, it wasn't that. It was he kind of grabbed us and he just said, hey, this is going to be your names. And then he said, Mace, T-Bar, Slapjack. And we were, I mean, we were
Slapjack is crazy. I'm not going to lie.
I guess our biggest question was like, how did you guys come about? How did you pick these names so we can like figure out what to do with it, right? Because the first thing that came to our mind was, oh, these sound like weapons. So like, do you want me to come out with like a bar of some sort, and you want him to have like a blues club or a slapjack or something? And then a mace is obviously a very obvious weapon. So we thought like maybe wants us, he being Vince, because I don't think Bruce said like Vince came up with these names, but the working assumption at that time was that if something came up, it was probably either chosen by or greenlit by Vince. So that's just what we assumed. We just kind of wanted to know, like, okay, well, that's our names, fine. Like, what do we do with them now? Like, how will this be presented? How can we fulfill his vision? Right. That ultimately that was the goal. Because like at that point, we're on the main roster. This is our first big segment. It's a featured presentation under Vince McMahon. It's his whole idea and brainchild. So we're like, who cares like what we think of it? If he likes it, we can main event WrestleMania. It's his show. He does the whole thing. So like we'll be as big a deal as he wants us to be. So like we'll do whatever he wants. And if I can make T-Bar work, I'm going to make T-Bar work because it's his idea. So let's do it. Let's go. That was the general thought process.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of in ring like perspective, like when it comes to like getting hit, what can you say is like the hardest you've ever gotten hit in the ring, and by who? I would ask.
So I guess there's two different categories of that. There's like what's the worst bump you've ever taken, and then there's like who's physically struck you the hardest, I guess.
Both. Do both.
The worst bump I've ever taken was probably in it was a Texas death match on the Indies, and I took a belly to back from Matt Taven off the top rope. And he didn't know this, but there was a chair behind us, and the chair was upside down, so it was the ridge part was up. It wasn't flat. So I landed my spine, and the ridge went right up my spine, and I lost like both my hands and my arms went numb for a second.
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh my god, this is the worst feeling ever." Thankfully, it all came back right away. But yeah, that was probably the worst one, bump wise, and then strike wise. I don't know. There's no strike that like sticks out. You know what's people ask me who has the stiffest chops a lot of the time, and they're always surprised because I've wrestled like Gunther and Eddie Edwards, the people who are notable for their chops and stuff.
Yeah,
but like a real dark horse for that is Mark Briscoe. He has very, very sharp chops. To the point where, as wrestlers, we kind of pride ourselves on how much our chops hurt. So he probably takes the cake in terms of that. I'll give him credit for that.
Okay. Lisha, you go ahead.
So I have like a kind of, it's not really a weird question, but I know you said in an interview earlier this year that your favorite match was the Iron Survivor match. Has there been any match that you've had since then that's topped that?
No, but I've had a lot of great matches on the independent scene. Some of my favorites were with Jake Something and Calvin Tankman. Me and Alec Price have had a bunch of really good ones. Me and Anthony Green had a really good one. So I've had a very good run. The interesting part about being on the independents now is that almost every single one of my matches is a singles match, a one-on-one match. To the point where I don't think I can think of a time where I didn't have a singles match. I think every single match I've had since the triple threat at Stand and Deliver has been a singles match. I don't think I've even had a tag match.
I was there for that one. I was there for that one.
I was there for that one, and I was there for the Iron Survivor. Actually, like after that match was over, you were sitting on the steps in front of me, and I was like making jokes, and you were laughing. That was a pretty dope.
Oh, you were over on the entrance side.
Yeah, like right by like where you go up the stairs to get into the ring. I was sitting right there.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember very vividly, clear as day, because we had that whole sequence at the end, which was so precise on time, and a lot of it was designed to cue off of me and my timing on things, because we had to hit exact times in terms of we need to end up with these two guys with 10 seconds exactly left, and it's like so many moving parts out of that.
Yeah.
So once I finished my part with Eddie Thorpe, where he does the surprise and then he kicks me in the face and I get rolled up or whatever by Trick, I exited, and all I can do at that point is watch. So I remember just sitting probably 10 feet from you, just sitting down out of sight, out of the camera line, but just best seat in the house, front row seat, watching, because at that point I just become a fan of what we've all done. And I'm watching the clock and I'm watching the execution of it. And I remember just, I remember as the finish happened, I remember just like screaming at the top of my lungs, because I knew if a camera caught me that it would look like me complaining and crying. But really, I've never been more happy in my life with how a match went. I was so excited, and I was so pumped that it went as perfectly as we had planned out. So I was just screaming with joy with how that match ended. So you probably couldn't hear me, even though I was right next to you, but that's what I was doing.
I have a question. So if that's your favorite match, right?
Yes.
Will be, if you had to create like a top 3 of your favorite matches you've done throughout your career, would that be in number 1? What will be the other 2 matches?
Man, that's a great question.
Thank you.
For a long time, my favorite match was me and Keith Lee and Roderick Strong in a triple threat match. I know that's not the answer that most people expect.
I was thinking of Portland. I was thinking of Portland.
The Takeover Portland one. I'd probably. It's hard to. I like to mix it up. It's hard to say. So many people talk to me. Not a day goes by where someone doesn't come. If I'm on a show and I'm selling merch at a merch table, literally every single time people come up to me and they say, "Hey, I loved your feud with Keith Lee, and that match you had to take over Portland was one of my favorite matches of all time." It happens constantly. That happens. And I loved that match, and it was a wonderful experience. The problem, not the problem, but the thing about the dynamic with me and Keith is we had so many singles matches that was like, I don't know, that was like number 30 or something, right? We'd wrestled like 1 million times. Ironically, I think that was probably the last singles match we ever had, even though we had like 1 billion singles matches. That was probably the last one we've ever had up until this point. So much so that a lot of that's, even though it was in front of that hot crowd and it was getting all these great reactions, and it's exactly what we wanted it to be. For me, it was like, it was just another step on like our progression of what we were doing. For whatever reason, that triple threat with Roddy really stood out to me as like a unique sort of spectacle dynamic that involved the me and Keith dynamic. So that's why I love that so much.
Yeah.
If I had to come up with a number 3 on that list, I'd probably go with me and Ilya Dragunov in
that was a good one. Oh my god, that was a good one.
Or Battleground, one of those.
Wow, I almost forgot about that match, because my top 3 like favorite matches from you is the Iron Survivor one y'all was talking about, the Keith Lee one, and the triple threat at Stand and Deliver. But that Ilya one, I almost forgot about that. It slipped my mind. That was up there.
I mean, the triple threat's up there too. I mean, I was very fortunate to have the run that I had over the past 2 years. 2023 into the beginning of 2024, and now throughout 2024 has been just the pinnacle stretch of my career. I feel like I'm in my prime right now. It's tough because all I get right now is singles matches, so it's hard to sort of flex my creative, because I feel like I'm just like, it's tougher than you think to continually sort of reinvent a singles match, because like I almost get excited to the point where it's like if I show up to a show and they're like, "Oh, you're a babyface tonight and you're wrestling a guy who's bigger than you," I'm like, "Oh, thank God," just because it's like a different dynamic than what I have to do so often. Because I've wrestled a lot. Like this year, especially the past 6 months, I've wrestled more than I wrestled in a very, very long time. I'm wrestling, 2 or 3 times a week now, which is significantly more than I was wrestling in almost all of my tenure in WWE. So yeah, there's a lot of matches happening right now, and a lot of them just historically, I tend to be booked as a overbearing heel to an undersized babyface, underdog champion type, and that's like the classic scenario that happens to me constantly. So sometimes I find myself like doing a lot of the same spots, and I'm not the kind of guy who likes to repeat himself or rest on my laurels and things like that. So I try to challenge myself to be creative in those scenarios. But it's tough when you're wrestling, 2 or 3 times a week, and you don't know who you're wrestling and stuff like that. So anytime I get something outside of that bubble, I'm super excited about it.
Mm-hmm. All right, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
yeah. One of the ones I really want to know. So you, I guess, like as a starter, my question, NXT Black and Gold kept me into wrestling. Around like 2014, I was falling out of love with it, and then NXT came along, and just went on. So you got to wrestle in NXT Black and Gold, and then to this newer era of NXT. How would you compare the experiences?
Honestly, and people asked a similar version of that question to me somewhat often. I would put them right about the same. I know for the fans, it's sort of a different feeling, and everybody holds Black and Gold in a very like different light. I think that's circumstantial more than anything else, just because at that time, like the main roster was just being run directly under Vince, and it was, it was definitely a how would I phrase that? The fans wanted an alternative, right? And Black and Gold was that alternative, even though it was still WWE. It just felt like that sort of underground ECW sort of like vibe, and that was cool. It was cool to be a part of. But for me, you have to remember that circumstantially and situationally, my goals and my aspirations weren't to be on the coolest show, right?
Yeah.
Being on the coolest show is like a fun feather in your cap, but ultimately, like, more people are still watching Monday Night Raw, more people are still watching SmackDown. They get the WrestleManias, they get the SummerSlams. I wanted to be a top guy in that company. I wanted to be a world champion. I wanted to be main eventing pay-per-views. That was always my goal from day one. So it was cool to be in Black and Gold, but ultimately it was just a competitive atmosphere where it's like, I'm trying to have the best matches. I'm trying to stand out the most so I can eventually get called up and get a big push on the main roster and stuff like that. Like, that was my mindset. And I think that was a lot of the other guys' mindsets too. So we weren't while we were enjoying it, it wasn't like to combat that, there were a handful of guys who just wanted to stay on NXT. They're like, you know what? I'm going to get buried on the main roster. I don't want to go to the main roster. I just want to stay on NXT. I didn't feel that way. I felt like, I'm a taller guy. I'm in good shape. I figured Vince would like me. I'm just guessing, right? Turned out I may have been correct, but that was always my goal. I don't have any regrets. That's the way that I felt about it. That's the way that I looked at it. And then comparing it to my second run in NXT, whereas the first run, it felt a lot like I needed to like prove myself. The second run felt like I needed to almost like redeem myself and like remind people of who I am and what I'm capable of, to wash the retribution taste out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to reinvent myself in a sense, because I wanted to show people, because again, my goals were still the same. I still wanted to be the top guy, still wanted to main event WrestleMania, be the champion. I still wanted to do all those things. To this day, I still want to do all those things, but I just have to continually try to figure out how we get there, what my path looks like, because obviously it's a different path than the path that other people have taken.
Yeah.
But yeah, my second run, I just said, you know what, I'm gonna give them a brand new character. I'm gonna give them something that's super easy to sink your teeth into, and I'm gonna give them the best wrestler in the world, and I'm just gonna continuously set myself up for success as much as I possibly can. And I felt like I did that. I really do. When I look back at it in my second run in NXT, I'm so proud of everything that I did. Even today, NXT released their year-end awards, and the triple threat match from Stand and Deliver was surprisingly to me. I honestly didn't expect them to do this, but they nominated that for a match of the year contender, which I'm super thankful for, because they I don't know who runs that, but they easily could have been like, oh, Dijak doesn't even work here anymore, so let's not put that on the list. But they did. To their credit, they did. They put it up there, and the fans are responding to it. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for everything, all the opportunities they gave me. That's the biggest crowd that I ever wrestled in front of, in terms of a match that featured, me in a spotlight sort of situation. So. Yeah. So I'm super happy and super thankful with the way that run went. But so to long answer to your question, but the answer to the question is I view them about the same, but for different reasons.
Okay.
I got one. When it comes to Black and Gold, around that time, for a good amount of time, Black and Gold was going head to head with AEW. And you mentioned around that time that was like you wanted to prove yourself around that time. Was there any like pressure or extra pressure knowing that you guys were going up against AEW? Like, did you feel any of that pressure? Did you ever worry about that? Like, what was your thought process?
I was certainly putting pressure on myself. I'll say that I'm super competitive. Even though ultimately, like, it didn't have much to do with it, like in terms of like ratings and stuff like that. Like we all knew deep down that ratings aren't like a super relevant metric in terms of, because ultimately what it comes down to is TV rights deals, and TV rights deals they're based much more on other stuff than ratings. Ratings is a piece of a much bigger pie, but ultimately it just kind of becomes like bragging rights, right? And like I just wanted bragging rights, right? I wanted to be able to say like, hey, I'm on the show that's doing a little better. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. I think more often than not, we didn't. I think we lost the ratings battle fairly often. But, I would always look at my segments and see how my segments were doing in terms of ratings. Again, not like, I don't think ratings are like a reflection of like, oh, this match is going really well, the ratings are going to go up. It's much more a reflection of like the show overall and how it's being booked and what happened last week and stuff like that. So it's really just kind of like a time, a waste of my time, really, is what it was. But it's something that I was always, I always had it in the back of my mind. Who's wrestling while I'm wrestling? Am I the person who's generating buzz to people who are watching, things like that? Can I? A big part to me is if I was wrestling and we were going against AEW. Can I have the match of the night amongst all shows? That was always a big goal of mine, especially when it was like wrestling, because me and Keith had a bunch of matches that went head to head with AEW. So that was kind of always in the back of my mind.
Okay. When you got caught up from the draft, right? Was there any concern in like how you was gonna get booked? Like, did you feel as if you got more stuff to do in NXT, or like?
So you're talking recently,
recent draft. Yes, the recent draft.
There's in WWE, you're basically conditioned to always have some doubt in the back of your mind, because really anything can happen, right? Yeah. Ultimately, it just boils down to one or two people's decisions. So. So there's always that question of doubt. That being said, I honestly felt like I was in a really, really good position at that point. Like I had just had that triple threat at Stand and Deliver. I'd been, in direct communication with everybody who books all the shows and a lot of the producers and showrunners and things like that. And everybody had good, pleasant things to say to me. It seemed like everybody was excited. The only looming doubt in my mind was my contract was coming up. And I was like, it's kind of weird part of me was like, it's kind of weird that they haven't renewed this, because usually it starts like a year out. But then I started hearing stories of other guys. Like I was hearing stories of people who were getting like major players who had a good spot at the top of the card, who were like getting renewed like a week out or 2 weeks out or something like that. So I was like, oh, I guess that's just the way that they're doing it now. So even that I didn't worry about too much. Really my biggest concern came or started when there were little bits and pieces where it's like I wasn't drafted on TV, so that raised a question mark. But ultimately, it was just a bunch of question marks where it was like, no big deal. This probably doesn't mean much. And then, but then the concern level started to rise when I actually physically showed up to Raw, and it was like, sorry, we don't have anything for you this week. And then that happened a couple weeks in a row, and that's when it was like, that's when I started to have to do the thing that I used to do when I was on Raw, which was, oh, well, they must be waiting for this. They're waiting for SummerSlam, and then they'll start to push me after SummerSlam, or they're waiting until after WrestleMania, and that's when they'll, I started doing the justification in my mind, and that's the first time where I was like, you're doing that thing that you used to do, and that's a it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign when you're justifying and saying, oh, they're probably doing this for this reason. Oh, they're probably doing this for this reason. Because that doesn't things tend to trend in WWE, and it turns out that it did trend towards them not renewing my contract.
All right, okay. Damn. So how long, I guess I ain't gonna say how long into your contract, but when did you figure out they definitely not resigning me? Like how much time you had left in your contract before you figured out they were not resigning?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was, I mean, you can kind of just do the math, because my last match for WWE was on WWE Speed against Xavier Woods.
Yep.
And then I publicly announced that my contract was up on June 28th. I think that match for Speed aired on like June 15th or something. So I don't remember the exact date, but somewhere in that, I think
it was the week before.
Yeah, I think somewhere in that window of 2 or 3 weeks, I was notified by somebody in talent relations. It was a big game of telephone, because I have a management group, and my manager is the one who was speaking to their talent relations person who was doing the negotiating. So it's this big game of telephone, and ultimately I got a call from my manager like, hey, they're not going to renew your contract. And that was, obviously that's a moment where it's like, that's not what I expected you to say, sort of moment. We thought we were going to get lowball. That's what we thought. Like worst case scenario was like, oh, they're going to, they're going to ask you to take less money or something like that, and I'd have to figure out a negotiation or something like that. I did not expect them to come back with, oh, we're not interested in having you. That kind of felt out of left field, but ultimately it's just an opportunity. It's an opportunity to go and if a conversation that I wanted to have with WWE regardless was, I only want to be here if I'm going to be given the opportunity to prove myself and elevate myself, right? Because here's where I am right now. I'm in the mid-card mix sort of thing. I want to be a top guy for this company. And I wanted to make that clear for them, that if they didn't see me as a top guy in any capacity, and that wasn't a plausible option, then I wanted to go somewhere else to reinvent myself, because I only want, I was in WWE long enough where I knew where I wanted to be on the card. And if that wasn't an option at that point, that's okay. I'm not offended by that. And turns out that wasn't an option at that time. So I'm okay with that. And I'm doing that right now. I'm reinventing myself, and I'm proving myself as a top guy in MLW and wherever else I end up. That's my goal, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. And I'm excited to do that, because I feel like I'm in the prime of my career. I know I'm in the prime of my career, and I'm just going to continue to do exactly what I do and show people that I can round out the full package on the microphone, and I can do it character wise, and I can do it vignette wise, and I'll continue to do it in ring as well.
Mm.
Okay.
All right. Elisha, you got a question?
So speaking of the release, where did the idea for you to write the letter came from? Because I know when I saw it, I was in shock. It took my breath away. I thought you were trolling, and then like I fully read
I
through
do
it, and I
do
was
that
like,
a lot, don't I?
I read through it, I was like, oh no, like he's gone. So like, where did the idea to like write the letter and take the picture come from?
It was my idea, completely my idea. I was actually strongly advised against it. In hindsight, maybe I don't know. It's leaving WWE is a massively double-edged sword because it's going to generate buzz, it's going to generate controversy, and ultimately you kind of have to pick what angle you're going to go into it with, right? Because what happens is there's a fan base that is extremely dedicated to WWE. And I understand that. I was part of it. I was extremely dedicated to WWE. But there's so much so that the second you're not with WWE anymore, you're like, I don't want to say the enemy, but like they want to justify you being gone, right?
Mhm.
So they'll say, oh well, he sucked, or he was bad at promos, or he did this and he did that, you know. So ultimately, I have to choose at that point: am I going to avoid that by just being quiet and pretending none of it happened, and then you don't have to deal with that sort of noise, or am I going to kind of press right through it and say, I don't give a shit what you say about me. I'm going to generate as much buzz as I possibly can, and it's going to be a polarizing sort of thing. That's the no. If you follow me throughout the career, I often trend in that direction. Maybe at the detriment of my career, but that's just how I've always felt about it. I've always felt I'd rather be loud and polarizing than be quiet and forgotten about, right? Because that's ultimately what happens. Is if people aren't talking about me, that just means they forgot. It's not a good. Oh, a lot of people are like, oh, Dijak talks so much, he never shuts up, and that's why they got rid of him. Okay, if I had been quiet and I had never said anything, then everyone would have just forgotten I existed. I'd probably be gone anyway, and then I just wouldn't have as much buzz. So it's a big double-edged sword. You basically have to guess. My whole idea with the letter was, here's the truth. I'm going to give everyone the truth. I'm going to give everyone facts. I'm going to state as many facts as I possibly can about how I was not an injury person. I didn't complain about wins and losses, things like that. I just wanted to disarm people as much as possible. Turns out that no matter how much I disarm, people are going to find something anyway. They just made up some stuff about me leaking to dirt sheets and stuff like that. So that's the made up reason that everybody says that I got released for. The reality is if they didn't come up with that, they would have come up with something else. This happened to my friends. This happened to MXM. It happens to everybody who leaves WWE. People just come up with a reason. Oh, you're too old. Oh, you weren't having good matches. Oh, your promos, your character weren't good. They just want to justify it because they're so pro WWE. And I get it. I understand being pro WWE and wanting the thing that you like to be good and successful and stuff like that. So I understand the sentiment, but like, obviously, when it's lies made up about me, you know, I get offended. But it's gotten to the point where I don't even touch it anymore. You know what? People are going to say stuff. They're going to make things up, and that's fine. I've said my truth. It was the complete truth. It's how I felt, and I signed my name on it. And I've been putting my nose to the ground ever since. I've been working my ass off. So that's how I approach things.
You mentioned something about. I had a quick question, real quick. You mentioned something about wins and losses and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a feud where you did lose, but you felt like that was like the wrong decision, or like you should have won the feud, or a match?
I never looked at booking and like questioned it. I always felt that I was wanted to be a champion in WWE. I felt like I I was capable of carrying a title in a prestigious way and giving it the matches that it deserved. It's funny because in hindsight, I kind of feel like I did that regardless with the North American Championship because I had so many great matches for the North American Championship. Obviously, I didn't win any of them because, you know, I was never North American champion. But it's funny when you look at the history of the North American Championship, I'm probably on the list for a lot of the best matches in that title's history. So it's kind of funny in hindsight. There was certainly a point where I felt like I was trending toward winning the North American Championship, and unfortunately, that's exactly when COVID hit. That was really the only time where I felt like, oh, I think I might be in line for like, because what was happening was Keith was the champion. I was feuding with Keith, but Keith felt like he was on such a run that he was probably trending towards the NXT Championship, which ultimately he did. He just ended up keeping both. And there was that's when COVID hit. I don't know this for sure. Nobody ever told me, but we ended up, I knew for sure that the match at WrestleMania TakeOver 2020 was supposed to be me and Damian Priest and Keith Lee in a triple threat match for the North American Championship. Nobody told me who was winning that match. I have no idea. It was like 2 or 3 months out, but I wouldn't have been shocked if I had been booked to win that match, but ultimately it didn't happen, and COVID hit, and I got called up, and then I got called back down, and then I got called back up again. And again, it's the middle of COVID, so I'm not like blaming them for this. This is what happened to everybody. But you know, there's very few situations that I look back and say, oh, I wish I won that match. I wish I did that. Because ultimately, my job was to give the best performance with the given circumstances. And ultimately, I felt like that would eventually elevate me and pay off in a certain direction. Do I wish that I was, you know, a big champion who won lots of matches? Of course, yeah. But ultimately, I don't worry about booking decisions because that's not me. I'm not the booker, so I can't sit back and go, I wish this happened. I wish that happened. This should have happened. This should have happened, because that's just it's somebody else's story to tell. My story takes place on the microphone and in the ring and all that stuff, and that's what I can control. So that's what I spend the most time worrying about.
Okay, Tio,
my question. He mentioned the dirt sheets earlier. My question about the dirt sheets is just like, what would your relationship be with them? And like, I'm very iffy on dirt sheets, so it's like my question would pretty much be: are they more wrong most of the time or more right most of the time? You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
like, and what's your relationship with?
Talking about? It definitely depends on which one you're talking about. In my experience, there's the quote unquote dirt sheets that come from a background of actual journalism are the ones that tend to trend in a correct direction.
Like
nobody's ever going to be 100% right, because the reality of pro wrestling is that these decisions do change like minute by minute. So you can say like, oh, the plan is for this to happen or whatever. Which, by the way, most dirt sheets never actually do. There's very few dirt sheets that like actually say like quote unquote spoilers. I think usually it's more like a, you know, like a CM Punk is in talks to return to WWE type thing. And it's like, A, how do you even prove that either is or is not happening, other than whether it happens or not? And B, it's like those things can change like down to the minute, right? They did a documentary about it where he said like, I signed like while I was in a room backstage, like at Survivor. So like, who knows, right? That stuff can just change like by the second.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to say who's right and who's wrong. In my experience, just from what I would see and what I would hear, I always thought that I can't remember the names, but there's some companies that do a more journalistic approach, and you can kind of see that they don't speculate as much, or if they do, it's listed as like editorial or whatever. You know, that's how newspapers usually approach it. And then they, you know, that's kind of the approach. That's how I see it anyway. So I don't pay it's interesting though, because there was a point in my career where I was T-Bar on Monday Night Raw, and I was just like praying that I would get rebranded or renamed or whatever. So like occasionally like a dirt sheet article would come out that's like, oh, you know, so and so has big plans for T-Bar, and I would read that and I'd be like, oh man, I hope that's true. I hope that there's a source, because when you hear about these people reporting about sources in WWE, as a talent, you always assume that it's like a writer or someone in the production room or whatever, just because like that's the only people who know anything. The talent don't know anything, which is another funny part that relates back to people accusing me of leaking stuff, because as a talent, we don't know anything and there's nothing worth leaking, because they don't tell us anything. They don't even tell us about our own stuff and our own storylines and matches and stuff. So there's nothing like to say at all. So I would get like articles, I would get like tagged in articles or whatever, where it's like, oh, Vince McMahon has a big plan for T-Bar. And I'd read that and I'd be like, man, I really hope that that's coming from someone in a production meeting who heard that Vince said that he has a big plan for me or something like that. Because I'm not going to hear that, right? No one's going to tell me that. They might go and tell whoever else, some dirt sheet, that, and then I'd be like, oh, I hope that comes true. And most of the time it wouldn't. So, so that was always a, kind of false hope, but it's just the way it is. It's the nature of the business. And, I pay attention to stuff that could potentially affect me just as much as anybody else. And, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, and it is what it is.
Okay. Real quick, Lisha or Bot, if anyone of y'all have another question, I can ask it, and then we're gonna start bringing some people up from the chat so they can get a chance to ask some questions too.
So I got one more. So we talked about your favorite matches and moments earlier. I kind of want to ask the other side of that. Is there like a match or moment or experience that you look back at and you're like, that wasn't my best work? And is there anything you learned from that experience?
Yeah, my least favorite match of all time was the one I was just talking about, the triple threat that was supposed to happen at WrestleMania Takeover in 2020. It ended up happening in Full Sail in an empty building, and it was the most depressing, painful thing I've ever done in my life, because those are two of my best friends, and we were looking forward to that match so much. It was really going to be like our big breakout, like showing. We were so excited about it. We had so many ideas, and then it's like, oh, COVID hit. That match isn't happening. In a big arena, it's now happening in Full Sail in front of the cameramen, and it's like, oh. So we ended up doing it. It was on television, so there's a commercial break. So it ends up being like 2 segments. Keith and Luis are huge, big guys, and we're just beating the hell out of each other and bumping the hell out of each other. And all of it hurts so much more when there's no crowd popping for you. And no one was watching the show because everyone was locked down and kind of depressed and not wanting to, see empty arenas and things like that. So yeah, it was just overall a very negative experience, but not because we didn't try or anything. We were trying our asses up, but just situationally, it was just super negative. Yeah. So yeah, that's probably my least favorite match of all time. So much so that somebody sent me a clip one time, and I was like, nope, I'm never watching that. I'm never watching a clip. Yeah. You would have to torture me to get me to watch that match. I'd rather watch anything else.
What?
I have one more question as well. So going back to the independent scene, how is it different now than it was pre-WWE for you?
That's a great question. I would say that the biggest difference for me is that you don't see as many consistent faces on every show. And by that, I mean, there was like, with the advent of AEW, what happened is that sort of chunk of like traveling super indie guys all kind of ended up in AEW, and now we kind of flip flop back and forth between WWE and AEW. And ultimately, before, when I was on the Indies in 2016, there was a big group of guys where you could go to any show any given weekend, and I'd see Keith, I'd see Cody, I'd see Brian Cage, I'd see, we'd all be on the same shows, and I'd be on one with one guy here and one guy here, and it was just this mix of like 20 people that you would see constantly every weekend. Now there's a little bit of that, but really it's more localized, right? There's people who travel, but the people who travel kind of like replace each other, like I'll do House of Glory one week, and then Matt Riddle will do House of Glory the next week, and then I'll do Deadlock, and then someone else will slip in and do Deadlock. So we're all kind of like rotating in sort of a way where we're all kind of filling in for each other and rotating around. So unfortunately, I don't get to see a lot of the guys that I like, as often as I would. But on the other side of that, I get to see a lot of new people. I get to meet tons of new faces all the time. Again, double-edged sword. But I'm having a good time, and I'm enjoying wrestling all sorts of new people. I wrestle new people all the time. So I've had very few repeat matches. I think Alec Price and Jake Something are the only guys that I've wrestled more than once, unless I'm forgetting someone. But yeah, it's been really fun.
And then this last one is just for me. Give me just 1 second. Your favorite New England promotion that you've wrestled in recently?
Oh, that's really hard to list. I have so many. I've had opportunities with Chaotic, Beyond, Limitless. It's hard to pick one. I'm not going to pick one because they're all very even. I feel like I'm forgetting one.
I was hoping to hear like a random one in Connecticut, so I can just like go find it and just.
Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg was the first place I should have. See, this is why I don't like, because I forget about so many. But yeah, everyone I've worked with has been spectacular, and they've all been unique and great in their own way.
You had said something about you was naming some people, and you mentioned Cody, and yes. I had a question about Cody. It's kind of two questions. One, are you watching the current product? If so, what are your thoughts about this Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens situation? And like, if you're watching it, like, who do you think is more in the wrong in this situation between like Cody and Kevin? If you're keeping up with it.
Oh Lord, Donney.
Yeah, so
I had to ask. This is a question on my mind.
That's my uncle though.
I keep up with the current product. Through like social media and tweets and stuff like that, and what other people send me. Unfortunately, I don't have the what's the word? I'm not in a comfortable mental space right now to consume WWE as a weekly product. Mm-hmm. Not because they're doing anything wrong or anything like that. Like these are my friends. Like I know all these people, and I want them all to do well and succeed and stuff like that. But just for me, as a someone who was there and who had goals and aspirations, and I strive to be at a certain level and things like that. For a month or two after, just because I was in a routine, because I always watched the product. Like no one consumed more WWE than me while I was with WWE. So for a month or two after my contract concluded, I was still in that repetitive nature of watching everything every week. And I realized that it was very, very bad for my mental health for no other reason other than my brain works in a capacity where it's like, oh, I would watch the product because I'd be like, I can fit in here. I can do this. Maybe I can pitch this to this person. Maybe I can pitch this to this person. I can do this, and I can. And so my brain is still doing that, and then it always circles back to, you don't work for this company anymore. And that's a depressing kind of dark thing to keep yourself in a vicious cycle of. So that's really the reason why I don't watch the product on a week to week. That being said, these people are all my friends, and I want to see them succeed. So I still find out like what happened so I can keep up with their careers and see what's happening. But I don't, like, I saw a clip of Kevin doing the package pile driver to Cody. I don't know why, what the storyline is there, but I saw that it happened. So I know that Cody's going to be out for a couple weeks, and I saw that they brought back the old belt. So all that's cool, and I'm happy that they're doing well, because I want to see everybody do well, and I want them to, main event shows and make lots of money and all that stuff.
Yeah, I get it. Good answer. Short. To answer the question for you, I'll just tell you that Cody is in the wrong. That's all. I'll just tell you. I'll just tell you Cody is in the wrong. That's all I'll say.
Look, nobody got more heat than me. The day after Cody won the championship at WrestleMania, I made some tweet that said that someday in the future, like, I think I said it won't be like this week or this month or even this year. It might be next year or something like that. But people are gonna. I said there will be a day where Cody Rhodes gets booed out of the arena, and people were eviscerating me for saying that. I was like,
I remember that.
I was like, okay, you can. That's fine. It's a very pro wrestling thing that the best bad guys make the best good guys, and the best good guys make the best bad guys. So I don't know why that's struck a chord with everyone. It was so controversial because it's clearly going to happen. There were people who were very angry that I said that, and it was a big moment.
Nah, I get you. All right, so we got somebody backstage real quick. We got somebody backstage. You got a question to ask people that's coming up. If you guys want to come up, DM me on Discord, and you guys get to ask one question, and we just get to the next person. So yeah, we start out with Ghost.
By the way, Dijak, I don't know if you knew, but Cody's actually my uncle. Cody is my uncle, blood uncle, by the way.
Cody,
yes.
Listen, Cody is his uncle, and I'm 6'5", and I play in the NBA. Okay,
one of those is true. One of those is true, Dijak. I'm gonna let you figure out which one of those is true.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus,
all right.
Man.
Ghost, what's up, man?
What's up, Donney? Come on, man. Really? I told you to put on the suit. Anyways.
Come on. This is the best hoodie in the world.
No. You know what? Let's get to the question. What's up, Dijak? So my question was, wow, I can't talk. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. All right.
I know you happy to see me. I know you happy to see me.
Donney, get a grip.
It's that hoodie smell that's getting to him. That's what it is.
Yes, it is. Yes. Who inspired you to, start wrestling? Like, who'd you watch growing up? If you give it
I watched mostly. I was the biggest fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin, like 1998, 1999, that time frame. There's no real inspiration for me in terms of getting into wrestling, because I didn't get into wrestling until 2012. So really, the reason that I got into wrestling was just kind of my overall general fandom of WWE and pro wrestling, and just a timing circumstance sort of thing. So there was no person that I never watched Stone Cold and said, oh, I want to be like Stone Cold. I want to be a wrestler. Being a wrestler always struck me as like an unavailable option, because I thought I would have to like pick between organized sports and being a pro wrestler. And I picked organized sports in high school. And I figured if I wanted to be a pro wrestler, I had to drop everything and quit school and go join the circus, right? That's in my mind what I thought being a pro wrestler was. I didn't discover that it wasn't that until I was 25 years old. So yeah, there was no real like sort of like that's the person who made me want to do it. It was just kind of an overall circumstantial thing.
All right. Appreciate the question.
All right.
Next person coming up. Let's get him. TJ, man.
What up,
good,
twin?
everybody? What's good? So my question, me personally, I'm beginning wrestling training in January, so I was wondering, it's kind of a two-part. First, what was your first day of training like? And then part two, what advice could you give someone like me who's beginning that journey?
Sure. So my first day, I remember I did like what we called a fantasy camp at the school that I'm a trainer at now, the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. But that was my first time ever stepping foot in a ring. And the first thoughts that I had, because we were doing simple stuff like hitting the ropes and taking a bump and getting out of the ring and things like that. And my first thought was, oh, this feels very comfortable, right? I felt like I was already familiar with the setting of a pro wrestling ring. because I had watched so much pro wrestling and I had so much muscle memory that I was just imitating what I saw on TV. And it turns out that's kind of the best way to do it. You just watch someone else do it and you envision yourself doing it. And then you say, oh, that's kind of the best way that I want to do it. That's kind of how I figured out how to punch. I just watched The Undertaker punch and I'm like, I'm just going to pretend I'm The Undertaker. And that's turned out to be one of the best ways to do it. Watching someone else hit the ropes, watching someone else take a bump, just pretend you're them and do it. And that helped me a ton. And I still tell students to this day, like, just pretend you're someone else and just do what you think they would do. And more often than not, that ends up being like the best version of you and the way you would do it. So yeah, that would probably be my advice to you too, is just find someone that you think is cool and like imitate them, and then find out if that's the way that you would like to do it, or if you would like to do it a different way, but sort of based on that, and then just kind of snowball from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, TJ. All right, next person coming up. Crack, what's up, man?
Well, hello, everybody. Hello, Mr. Dijak.
Hi.
My one question for you. I know everyone's asking like wrestling and everything. I'm gonna do something a little different, just simple. What's your favorite Christmas movie? We're in the holiday season,
You are being judged. Hold on, you are being judged by this. There's only one right answer, by the way.
Oh, here it goes. Here it goes. First of all, PU, Donney, PU. That hoodie still stinks, but that's besides the point.
What are we doing here? Come on.
My favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. I watch it every Christmas, just by myself. I go and I watch Die Hard, just because I love it.
That also answers another question. It's because people say if Die Hard's a Christmas movie or not. Considering that's your favorite one, I'm assuming you definitely believe that is so.
Yeah,
but
it is definitely a Christmas movie. Yes.
Home Alone, Home Alone, Home Alone, Home Alone. I'm
also good.
I liked Home Alone, and I watched Home Alone a lot when I was a kid. But now, as I go and I revisit it as an adult and like as a parent, I was having this argument with my group chat the other day because they were defending Kate McAllister, and I was like, she does not deserve defending. That is a mother who made.
He just ordered a cheese pizza, like they were having pepperoni, pineapple, nasty ass, and you can't get one slice.
And then she did it again in part 2.
And they did it again. They left
I don't understand how you can get out twice.
Too many mistakes for my liking. I wouldn't. I don't care how many kids you have. You got to take attendance or something. Like you got to take the roll call. Figure it out.
I said this yesterday. I literally said that to somebody yesterday, which is it makes no sense.
Oh man, Crack. Appreciate you coming up here, brother. Man,
thank you.
That was a good question. All right, man. Next person, Dionte, man.
What up?
Hello.
First of all, Donney. Good Lord, man.
Why? What? What are we doing here? What's up, man?
It stinks. Everybody,
it smells like Tide. Oh my!
It smells like yesterday. Is what it smells like.
Wow!
You got Dijak up here smelling all that. Come on, man.
He smells.
This is embarrassing, man.
All right.
That's all right, Dijak. All right, Dijak. Nice to meet you. Big fan of yours. I love your work. The matches with Keith Lee, chef's kiss. I love those. My question to you would be: of all the people that you've wrestled, who was like your favorite person that you got to wrestle, or like what the program is?
Yeah, it's hard to go against Keith, right? Keith and I wrestled so often that it almost feels like a cop out to say Keith. The reality is I wrestled him so much, but now it's been so long since we wrestled that I'd love the opportunity to get back in the ring with him, because it's been like, God, our last match together was like Retribution versus Keith Lee and Matt Riddle. It was some crappy like 6-man tag or something, just some throwaway nonsense. And that was like 5 years ago now. So I'd love to get back in the ring with him. So that's the easy answer. I guess a more difficult answer would be like one of my best friends is Anthony Green. I love any opportunity to wrestle him, and I've gotten to wrestle him like far less. Right now, someone who I'm having a great series of matches with is Jake Something. I think that he and I could go back and forth like tons and tons of times. But yeah, I mean, ultimately the list goes on and on. I wrestled Ilya Dragunov a bunch, Wesley a bunch.
I love those matches. I love that match.
I love that match.
Yeah.
we just started scratching the surface with me and Obafemi, which I thought
I
had like
wish we would have saw that match. Oh.
me and Trick Williams had a bunch of matches that I would love to continue at some point. Braun Breaker, you know, it's the list goes on and on. So, you know, there's a ton of people, but yeah, that's probably the top of the list.
Yeah, it's a bummer we never got to see that Obafemi one-on-one match. That match would have been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, there's still time. I'm only 37, so.
You got time.
And he's like 21 or something, so he'll be wrestling for the next 30 years.
All right, Dionte, appreciate you pulling up, man.
Dijak, nice to meet you. Big fan.
Nice to meet you.
And also, if someone doesn't get ratio by the end of the stream, I'm going to be very disappointed.
I tried to join the chat, but it doesn't even look like there is likes in the chat, so I can't ratio anyone. There's no system to do it.
Damn, hold on. Nah, but okay, look, this is a comment somebody had left right here.
Sure.
They said basically talking about the dislocated finger thing. They just asking like walk us through what happened with that.
Yeah, so it's this finger right here. The finish of that match was we do the dive or my moonsault off where he's trapped in the chair. Very, very funny moment there that I haven't talked about much. Tony D and Stacks were doing a run-in where they push West out of the way, and I do the dive onto them. So I'm climbing up, and I'm basically queuing off of the referee, who was, I'm pretty sure it was Hornet Daryl. So I'm basically looking at him, and he's watching the spot, and he's going to tell me when those guys are in position. And I'm just standing up there, jawing with him, arguing with him, and it feels like it's like I'm just standing up there for 5 minutes, but it was probably more like 10 seconds or whatever. But I talked to Tony and Stacks later, and they're like, "Yeah, we needed to wait to be sent by the production person with the headset on." And they're looking at them like, "I think this is the spot. I think we need to go." And they're like, "Wait, hold on, wait." So they wanted to go, and they were being held back. Eventually they got sent. They beelined in, and they pushed the chair out of the way. I did the moonsault onto them. Throw Wes into the ring, and then the finish is me. I springboard in to his super kick, and then he does the backflip Pele kick for the finish.
Yeah.
So on that springboard in, the super kick, I take the super kick and I throw myself back. And as I'm throwing myself back, I drive my hand into the mat. And as I'm driving my hand into the mat, this finger kind of hits and pulls and ends up going in and dislocating this way. So that's the picture that you end up seeing of me in front of the hospital giving the middle finger. Because it was just pointing that way instead. So yeah, we tried to fit. It's funny because that was my first premium live event in like so long. So I was super excited. We had a great match. I was trying to kind of reinvent the NXT brand. That was our first time on the road, NXT's first time on the road. I think since Takeover Portland. So like it was kind of a cool bookend for me because I was on that one and I was on this one. So I was so excited to go to the back and like get the reception and everything. And I couldn't do that because I was just like, the doctor grabbed me as soon as I ran through Gorilla. Sean was like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Not really." And then we kind of just like ran by him and we went to the back, and the doctor's like trying to pull it back into its socket. And he's like, "We get 3 good pulls and then you got to go to the hospital." And then on the 3rd pull, it didn't come out. So I was like, "I guess I got to go to the hospital." And we just assumed it was broken, but it turns out it wasn't broken. The knuckle was just popped over the joint. So they just needed to put some medicine in there and numb it up and jack it back into place.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That does not sound fun.
Well, I mean, at that point, the medicine was in there already, so I didn't feel it. I just saw like a horrible, like sort of.
Last call for any people that want to come up. We got another person backstage. And anybody else, if y'all want to come up, let me know real quick.
What's up?
What's up, man?
So, Dijak, my question would be to you is, out of any current wrestler, who would be your dream opponent?
Brock Lesnar, if he counts. If he's not available, I don't know what Brock's current status is as a pro wrestler. If he's unavailable, then probably Randy Orton. Even though I got to wrestle Randy a little bit in like a multi-man tag type scenario, so we got to work in the ring like ever so slightly. But I would love a singles match with Randy. That would be so awesome.
Okay, that kind of put a question in my mind.
Sure.
Who's on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling? Pro wrestlers, top 4 all time.
Super hard to do because pro wrestling covers so many different aspects, and people have asked me this many times. I think what I normally do is I normally name like the best in-ring worker, and then the best like promo, and then the best like character, and then the best who drew the most money. So it usually ends up looking something like Brock Lesnar, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, something like that. Some mixture of those guys.
You forget John Cena.
Jonathan Felix, Anthony Cena.
Sounds probably it's hard. You know, it's like I don't know which thing you would go in because of like if I had to pick like I guess if like longevity was a thing, maybe I'd go with John Cena. It just depends on what metrics
is.
Out of everybody I just listed, John's the only one that I actually wrestled. So like that's
how was that?
That's cool. It's cool that I got to wrestle him, but I don't. It just depends on the like 4 isn't enough. Like there's so many categories of professional wrestling, whether it's in ring, whether it's impact on the business, whether it's time spent on top, whether it's drawing power, whether it's like I left out The Rock, and The Rock is like the biggest, he's like the biggest star in the world, not just pro wrestling. So it's like I don't know, it's too hard to pick 4. That's not a realistic thing.
I like the idea of the metrics because I feel like when people ask people who's on their Mount Rushmore, they don't give people something to go off of. They just want them to say how they feel in that moment. And that can throw off a lot of people because then that's when all the conversations online start and all the arguments and the IWC start and stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier for me if it was like, who's your Mount Rushmore of like in-ring workers? Because then I could say Brock, Shawn, Randy, and like AJ, right? Because that'd be a lot. And there's some other like Taker would be up there, and like Claudio would be up there. But if I have to pick like 4, then I'm probably picking those 4 guys. Bret Hart would be up there. There's so many people in the mix, but it's
Danielson?
a lot easier.
What about Bryan Danielson?
What's that?
What about Daniel Bryan?
He'd be up there.
Kurt Angle.
I never got to work. Angle would be. There's so many, right? So when you say like best in ring worker, now I almost want to qualify it again and say, okay, who's your Mount Rushmores of guys who are great at selling, right? And then I can narrow it down even more. Who are your Mount Rushmores of guys who are big men wrestlers? And then I can narrow that down. Who are your Mount Rushmores of babyface underdogs? Now John Cena's in the picture. Now Daniel Bryan's in the picture. So it's like there's just too many metrics. There's too many metrics to just say this guy's better than this guy. It's like saying who's better, Shaq or Kobe, right? Like how do you compare those two people? Who's better, Kobe Bryant or Wilt Chamberlain? Like they're two completely different players that played two completely different positions and just happen to be in the same sport. So it's an impossible thing to do. And I think, but again, it's just it's just people just saying stuff. So ultimately, it doesn't matter.
I feel you. Somebody asked, do you think Triple H is top 10 all time? Because
add the context, Donney.
As a wrestler?
Okay. Listen, so I'll add the context since he said add the context. So been this whole discourse on whether Triple H is top 10 all time. So just in ring, mic work, just overall, not just one specific category, but just overall as a performer, as a wrestler.
I mean, overall is such a broad. I'd have to think of my top 10. Triple H is extremely high on my list.
Yeah.
I watch lots of his in ring. He and I were trained in a very similar fashion. He was trained by Kowalski. Kowalski had already passed by the time I started training, but I trained at Kowalski's school. So a lot of my trainers were trained by Kowalski. So we come from a very similar lineage. He's a New Hampshire guy. I live in New Hampshire. So there's a lot of parallels there. I watch him a lot in terms of studying like a heel's psychology, like a bad guy's psychology in terms of how they sell and how they put things over. And he does a Harley Race bump where he trained with Harley Race. I trained with Harley Race a little bit. He does a bump where he takes a hard buckle, he goes flying to the outside. I used to love the way that he does that. I used to like the way that he snap sells things and takes back. But there's a ton. Pro wrestling ultimately, as a pro wrestler, just ends up being just watching people and stealing as many of their different characteristics and things that they do, and then just making it your own stuff. And he was someone that I definitely took a lot from. JBL was another one that I took a lot from. Randy was another one. There's just so many options. You can just it's like a kid in a candy shop. You can just pick and choose all sorts of different stuff. But yeah, again, to circle back to top 10, I have no idea. I'd have to sit down and look at a list of every wrestler ever and say, okay, here's one, here's two. And even that would just be kind of like guesswork based on whatever thing I'm feeling in that moment. Triple H is very high on my list. We'll say that.
Okay. And anything else? That's it?
Like
I have another one actually. This is kind of like character wise. Have there ever been a moment where you broke character or almost broke character, like a funny moment? Because like whenever I think of funny moments you're involved with, I always think about the Vine Wagner, like you with the sunglasses on, like hey Dijak, like something like that would have made me laugh. So like, have there ever been a moment like that made you break or whatever it is?
Yes, yes, there was. This is actually fairly recently. It was the promo right before Stand and Deliver. And the line was Josh Briggs had a line about like something that was given to him where he was like, he's like, you look like a wannabe Shaft.
Shaft. Yep. That's what I was thinking of.
Just call me Shaft. I said like Samuel L. Jackson Shaft, and then I said, bro, I don't know if you could tell this or not, but I'm white. And the crowd popped huge. Everybody thought that was that was probably
that's one of my favorites.
Time where I really sort of experimented with. No, this is what like Chris Dijak, the human being, would say to his buddy, sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And there were some people who were not thrilled with that. It ended up being glossed over and ended up being fine. But yeah, when you go off script, you got to be sure that it's gonna garner the correct reaction. Thankfully that went well.
All right. Somebody DM me a question asking about whether you ever work with Finn Balor and like, would you ever want to work with Finn Balor? Just your thoughts about that.
I did. I worked with Finn a handful of times. Yeah, one of them was on Monday Night Raw, so that'll be easy to find. You just type in T-Bar versus Finn Balor, and you can find the highlights. I'm sure they're there. He and I had a longer singles match in Madison Square Garden, actually, which was kind of cool. It was like that. I don't know if they do it anymore. I think they still do it. There's like that holiday tour where it's like the day after Christmas.
About to start.
I was on that against Finn Balor, so that was cool. He and I wrestled in NXT once or twice on some coconut loops, I think in like tag matches or stuff like that. But yeah, that was the majority of it. I'd love to wrestle him more. He was always a pleasure to work with.
Another person I see you work with like during that T-Bar time was Damian Priest. I remember y'all doing like I don't know if it was an ODQ match, but I remember you being tied up in the ropes and him taking the kendo stick and stuff like that.
Yeah. Definitely my biggest and best match as T-Bar. That was definitely my biggest chance and opportunity.
Yeah. How did you feel about working with Damian Priest?
I loved it. Again, that wasn't our first rodeo. He and I have been friends for a long time. We had much longer, much more time matches on in Ring of Honor. We wrestled on NXT. We wrestled a bunch. We had a nice really nice match on NXT one time. I don't even remember the finish itself, but I remember he gave me a poison Rana off the top rope, which got a big reaction, and there was something else, and we had a cool finish to that one. I remember the funny part about that match is I remember we did a skull session with the Undertaker, so it was me, him, and the Undertaker, and we're just watching that match, and we did the poison Rana, and he like he being Undertaker like turns to both of us and just looks at us and goes, I need to talk to you after class. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get taken to fucking wrestler's court. I think he had to go or something, so he ended up not like reaming me out afterwards. But I know he wanted to. I know I was gonna get the "What are you doing?" speech, like, and he wasn't wrong. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah. That's what I remember from that match.
My last question will pretty much be, I know some wrestlers have favorite like arenas or venues they like to perform in. Do you have like a favorite venue? You mentioned the Finn Balor match in MSG. Is MSG one of your favorite venues? Like, do you have like a favorite venue to perform in?
Yeah, MSG definitely very, very cool. I got to wrestle there a handful of times. That was always awesome. I'm from New England, so I loved being in the TD Garden growing up, the old Fleet Center. So that was awesome. I never got a chance to wrestle at the DCU Center in Worcester, which would be like really cool for me because I grew up going to the DCU Center like when I was really, really young. I still go there all the time. Like I'm going there next month to go see Disney on Ice. Now I go see like Monster Trucks and Disney on Ice because I have 2 young kids. That's what I do at the DCU Center now. But I'd love the opportunity to wrestle there one day. That'd be cool. My local arena now is the SNHU arena in Manchester, so I think that would be a cool opportunity. When I was a kid, actually, I went to that arena. That was the Verizon It used to be the Verizon Wireless Center, and I actually saw. This is a fun fact. I was actually front row for the Undertaker versus Jeff Hardy ladder match for the championship. Everybody remembers that match because it was this cool match that nobody saw coming on Monday Night Raw. But yeah, that was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I was there for that one. So that would be a cool arena to wrestle in. I mean, at the end of the day, an arena is an arena. You know, they all kind of look and feel the same. The whatever they call the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago is very cool because it kind of feels different. Allstate Arena, I think it's called. I always want to wrestle in the Staples Center. I mean, now I'm talking arenas. There's obviously other cool venues like Hammerstein that I've wrestled in before for Ring of Honor. That's cool. That has some cool history. The ECW Arena I've wrestled in a bunch of times for Ring of Honor. I haven't been back to either of those in a very long time, so that would be cool. The Lowell Memorial Auditorium, where NXT just filmed yesterday. Is a cool one that I got to wrestle in a bunch, but I haven't been back there in a while. So those would be pretty cool to get back to.
A question I have is, you talked about some of your favorite matches you was in, but do you have any favorite matches, like just as a viewer, as a fan of wrestling, that you're not a part of?
What's my question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was your question. My fault. I didn't know that was your question.
It's a good question. My favorite match of all time is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan from WrestleMania 18.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm such a wrestling purist, and like all I think about is like footwork and psychology and all that. Yeah, and that match has none of it, but it's just such an awesome spectacle that it really just speaks to me in terms of like what pro wrestling can be on an emotional level, and that's just why I love it. I'll watch it 1,000 times in a row. It's so awesome.
Okay, that's nice. Last year, any more questions? Plus, since I took your question,
no, that was my last one.
I got one question. What was like the best piece of advice that anyone inside the wrestling business has ever given you?
That's a great question. What's the best piece of advice that anyone in the wrestling business has ever given me? I don't want to cop out the answer. So I'm trying to think of trying to think of a good. I'd say the best advice that I get is to just don't be afraid to be yourself, right? And I think that comes in a lot of different forms, and it comes from a lot of different people. I've heard it multiple times, but ultimately, I think the best advice that anyone could give anyone in pro wrestling is there's so much in terms of do this, do that, say this, say that, especially under a WWE umbrella, that don't forget to be yourself is a big piece of this. So that's some advice that I usually take to heart whenever someone says it to me.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
A wise man once said, "Hard work be talent when talent don't work." That's a quote that I also live by right there. Hard work be talent when talent don't work. What is besides that? Is there any other advice you would give to somebody else? Just life advice wise.
Yeah. Focus on the things that you can control, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, and this goes way beyond pro wrestling, but it's very applicable to pro wrestling too. There's a ton of things that we all spend so much time worrying about on a day-to-day basis that we have no control over, and it's very easy for me to say, like, for someone to say, like, oh, don't worry about that. It's much harder to do in practice, right? Because we all spend so much time. So if you can't get something out of your head, at least have the knowledge to know that, like, yes, I'm thinking about this, and yes, I'm focusing on it, but at least I know that I can't control it, so I can subvert my thought process and be more active about something that I can control. That would be my best advice.
That's good.
And it's advice for myself as much as for anybody else, because I'm a human being, and I focus on lots of things that I can't control, or things that are in the past and stuff like that. And I just have to consistently remind myself, like, yes, that is a concern of yours, and yes, your concerns are relevant, but also you have this in front of you and you have this in front of you, so control what you can control.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. Chat, any more questions before we wrap this up? Also, if chat don't got any questions, I have one last question for myself.
Sure.
It is, if you ever want to go back to WWE and you had an opportunity to just book how it get done, however it get done, how would you do it? How would you want to come back? Who would you want to be your first opponent? How would you want all of that to go?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
So I get to book myself, you're saying?
Yeah, you get creative control of, like, you went crazy on the indies. They want you back. They give you some freedom to do what you want to do. So
I've always said that the big money match is me and Keith Lee at WrestleMania. So I'd love for him to end up back in WWE, and then we both meet in that big main event title match, because I feel like that's a huge money match. I feel like it's a wonderful clash of friends and enemies and personalities and styles, and I think that people would really dig that on a huge stage. And I've always felt that way, and I've been very vocal about that to the people who book WrestleMania. So it's not like it hasn't been pitched, but it's it's there if they want it. At some point, maybe. I don't know. Who knows how the cookie crumbles.
Okay, so somebody just DM me this. I'm not sure the context of it, but they said, ask him, does he still have beef with Knuckles?
You don't know the context of that?
No, I don't. I probably something that slipped my mind.
Yeah, at Stand and Deliver, the whole the show itself was sponsored by Knuckles. Wow. The new show on, at the time it was the new show on Paramount Plus, and so they brought in Knuckles, like the mascot.
Yeah. Oh, and, okay.
He and I filmed a thing backstage where there was like a punching machine, and I ratioed him, and then during the match, they told us that there was a spotlight with Knuckles during the match. And we were like, oh, no, we have these huge plans for this match, and it's going to turn into a silly comedy match with Knuckles and whatever. turns out he was just like standing behind commentary, which ended up being that funny meme where he's just staring at Booker
Screenshot of
T.
him and Booker is hilarious.
That's where that came from. But yeah, me and Knuckles had beef before Knuckles and Booker T had beef. So you can find it. It's online somewhere. Just YouTube Knuckles and Dijak. It'll be there.
I'll probably look that up.
Yeah.
Chat.
Oh, to answer the question, no, me and Knuckles do not anymore have beef. I haven't seen him since that day.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Knuckles was a TV show, right?
Yeah.
It was a TV show. I think it's a movie now. I think they made a third movie or something.
Yeah, Sonic 3.
Yeah.
Just a side note. Speaking of TV shows, do you have a favorite TV show?
Like ever?
Game of Thrones.
Yes, like a comfort show, like a show you could just watch.
24.
Maybe.
24 was one of my favorite shows of all time. I love Breaking Bad. 24 is probably my number one.
You ever watch The Office or no?
No.
Oh, don't know what to
that's a classic. It's a classic.
Stop.
Oh, bro.
No.
I didn't watch it yet. I didn't say it's bad. I just haven't.
No, it's them. It's them. They reacted like, why are you asking about The Office?
So how about this? Speaking of Donney, Dijak, what is the best laundry detergent brand you would recommend?
All right.
Clean his hoodie.
All right.
Now we're wrapping. Oh, now we're wrapping it up. Oh, now
we're He said Tide. So clearly something other than Tide, because Tide is not working.
You need to get your game fit needs or something.
Me personally, I want to take a little disrespect.
Dijak, what? No, this is crazy. Oh man. Chat. Anything else before we head out of here? Because now, oh man, this is outrageous. T.O.
Amazing. Who do you think would win in the fight, Mr. Clean or Donney Blaze?
All right, that's enough. That's enough.
Out of here.
That is enough. Chat, listen. Any more real questions, Lisha, Bot, or T.O.? And you want to get up out of here, man.
Whoa. That was everything for me, man. I'm good.
Yeah,
that was what I had, man.
That was all you had.
I got one more.
You guys see a question while I make sure I got no more.
All right, Dijak. What is your favorite trilogy of all time? It can be wrestling, movies, shows, like whatever. What's your favorite trilogy?
Oh, it's got to be Star Wars then.
Yes, let's go. There.
Star Wars trilogy, yeah.
Thank you.
Dijak is a Star Wars fan? I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That hit my heart as a former Disney cast member.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I worked at Disney World for a little bit. Yeah, I was a custodial at Epcot for a little bit.
Oh, that's so cool. I was just we're going to Disney, and I used to live in Orlando, so we used to go all the time. But now I live in New England, so we only go once a year. We'll be back in April, I think. Yeah, April, end of April. My kids are getting older, so every time I go, they enjoy it more and more. So that's cool.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Do you watch Marvel, or are you just like a Star Wars?
I watched every Marvel movie that came out from like 2005 until what was the last Avengers one? Like Endgame or whatever.
Endgame.
Yeah. And then once it continued past Endgame, I was like, I can't.
What? Listen, Dijak. What is your favorite Spider-Man movie?
There you go.
What's up?
And after that, what you think's the worst?
Oh, let's not do that. Because we all know the answer.
With Tobey Maguire is definitely the worst.
Thank you.
The heart. Dijak, what?
The best might be Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. That might be the best.
That's the worst Tobey.
Yes.
That's the worst Tobey.
I think you got him set, bro. I think you're worse. I don't know.
It go 3, 1, then 2. That's
you are the first person ever to say that.
That's a ranking for Tobey movies.
That is a wild take.
That is the ranking.
Good for you bringing the hot take. I appreciate that.
Hijack everyone, man.
Yeah.
Now Spider-Man 3 is, oh man.
It's funny.
One not better than two. Two is the all right.
Was
whatever.
there anything good in Spider-Man 3?
We're not gonna do this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
The progression of the story of Sandman.
We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
I don't think Dijak wants to sit and listen to y'all have this argument for the 40 millionth time. Because I know I don't want to hear it.
All right, we'll be here all night arguing about Spider-Man. But any final words, Dijak, to the people?
No, thank you guys for having me. I had fun. I enjoyed being around everyone except for your hoodie that smells like.
Wow. So listen here. We have a debate coming up. Me and this dork right here with the hat on. Him right there was waving his hand.
The nephew of Cody Rhodes.
Listen, we have a debate coming up. His hat versus my hoodie. They telling you about how my hoodie is this and that, but he always wear his hat. So we have a debate coming up, hat versus hoodie. He always wear that stinky hat, dirty hat, stainy hat.
Well, he changed the hats.
He has several hats.
Oh wow, y'all on his side now? Oh my god,
Donnie.
All right.
When's the last time you wore a different hoodie?
Logistics. But listen. So we have a debate coming up this Monday. The topic is who is more in the wrong out of Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens in this situation. Who do you think gonna win this debate? Out of me and this guy right here, just off the eye test, man. Who do you think gonna win?
I guess it depends on.
Thank you.
I guess it depends on whether you decide to wear that hoodie or not. If
wow.
I can't know good consciousness give you the vote. So,
basically, Donney, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose.
We'll see what attire you come wearing, and then we'll
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Chat. Listen. Chat. Monday. Be there. We have hat versus hoodie. We also. you saying Donney fight back? You crazy? What are you talking about? Hey, Christina, bro, chill out.
No, but I don't even know that's useful.
What are you? All right, we got hat versus hoodie coming up this Monday. We also got a debate between Neph and Mo. They got a debate on who's better out of AJ Styles and Bryan Danielson all time. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough debate. And we also got a segment between Rod and Tjay on whether their situation should go to court or not. So make sure you're there this Monday. And yeah, appreciate y'all. Any last words before we end this? T.O., Lisha, Bot?
Are you forgetting a debate or am I tripping?
Yes.
Listen. We got another debate, but that's gonna be the week after Monday. So that debate that's Mitry versus Loft, and who had the better 2007 out of Undertaker or John Cena? That's gonna be another good one right there. I don't know how that's gonna go. That's all I'm saying. Real quick, Dijak, what's your thoughts on that though? Like, who had a better 07 if he was watching around that time?
Better like match wise or like
just year? Who had a better year in 2007
overall?
John Cena had the title.
The overall thing doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I was in the business too long to say because it's too hard because like I look at it in a very compartmentalized
category.
Yeah. So like I can't mix booking with in ring and stuff like because it all ends up being like a big mismatch of different minds, right? Like if I'm talking about booking, then I'm basically just judging what Vince McMahon decided to do with these guys. So it's it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you want to go just in ring, then I'd probably go with Taker for 2007.
Oh, Mitry might win this. I don't know. Mitry might win this.
You might finally win a beat.
Finally, he won against Esco. Don't do that. Come on.
That don't count.
Chat, but I appreciate y'all. Make sure I like up the stream. Make sure y'all check out the description for Dijak's Instagram and our stuff. Our information is all in Discord. I'm in the description, and make sure y'all join up the Discord also. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Y'all enjoy the rest of your night.
Good night.